My name is Claire, and for the longest time I believed I had a perfect life. A warm home, quiet mornings, and a husband who smiled at me like I was his world. Ethan. Everyone said he was the dream. Charming, successful, too good to be true. Turns out they were right about that last part. When we first met, he spoke with a confidence that filled the air. He'd look into my eyes and say, "You're special, Claire. You just don't see it yet." And I believed him. He noticed everything: my favorite coffee, the way I tucked my hair when nervous, the sketches I doodled absent-mindedly. His attention felt like love. But love, I would later learn, isn't the same as control. At first, he lifted me up. He told me I could do anything. Then, little by little, he began to tie his care around me like invisible strings. "You're brilliant, babe," he'd say, "but people can be cruel. Let me handle the meetings," or, "Your ideas are great, but you overthink them. I'll polish them for you." It sounded sweet, protective even, but it left me doubting myself just a little more each time. Slowly, my world shrank. Friends drifted away, replaced by Ethan's clients, his dinners, his plans. In public, he was perfect. He'd open doors, hold my hand, and tell everyone, "I'm so lucky to have her." People called us the perfect couple. At home, it was different. He'd sigh and say, "Don't interrupt me next time, it's embarrassing." Then he'd kiss my forehead and whisper, "I'm just helping you improve." And I believed him. Every word, every correction, every smile that hit a cut. My sketchbooks gathered dust. My laughter faded. The woman who once dreamed of running her own design studio now asked herself, what would Ethan think? He never yelled. He never hit. He didn't have to. He used praise like poison, sweet enough to swallow, slow enough to weaken. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Ethan would murmur, "You've gained a little weight, but I still love you." Or, "You look tired lately. Maybe don't stress about work." Every insult came wrapped in affection. Then one evening, while clearing the dining table, I noticed his phone buzzing. A message. "Lila, last night was perfect. Same time tomorrow?" My pulse froze. Ethan walked in, saw the phone in my hand, and smiled. That calm, unbothered smile. "She's just a client," he said. A client who called him my escape. I wanted to scream, but I didn't, because he had trained me not to trust my own emotions. That night, I lay beside him, staring at the ceiling, listening to his steady breathing. He had built my prison and called it protection. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't safe. I was trapped. But somewhere deep inside, a small spark began to burn. The next morning, he was as cheerful as ever. He brewed coffee, kissed my cheek, and said, "You know, you really overreacted last night." "You should talk to someone about these insecurities." I wanted to laugh. He broke me, then blamed me for the cracks. Over the next few days, I started noticing things. A new scent on his shirts, not mine. Business trips that suddenly appeared on his calendar. Late-night messages followed by quick screen locks. Once I asked him directly, "Are you seeing someone else?" He looked offended. "Wow, you really think that little of me? You need help, Claire." It wasn't the words that hurt the most. It was how calm he stayed while lying. I began keeping quiet. Not because I was scared, but because I was learning, observing, collecting pieces of truth hidden beneath his charm. And the more I watched, the more I saw the cracks. The perfect husband was slipping. He started coming home later, always with an excuse. Work, traffic, meetings. But once I saw lipstick on his collar. Faint, careless, pink. He noticed my eyes linger and said, "Oh, that?" A client hugged me. "Don't be paranoid." He said it with that same soft smile, the one that once made me feel loved. But now it made me feel sick. I began keeping a journal, writing things I couldn't say out loud. Every lie, every manipulation, every silent bruise. It wasn't for revenge, not yet. It was survival. proof that I wasn't imagining things. One night, while he was working late, I went through his study. In a folder labeled Consulting Expenses, I found hotel receipts. The truth hit like cold water. My perfect husband wasn't just unfaithful. He was methodical about it. I sat there staring at those papers, heart pounding, hands shaking. And for the first time in years, I didn't cry. I didn't beg, I didn't collapse. I felt awake. Because that spark inside me, the one he tried to smother, was turning into something else, a plan. I closed the folder, placed it exactly where I found it, and smiled faintly. For the first time, he didn't feel like my world. He felt like my project. For the first time, he didn't feel like my world. He felt like my project. And like any project, I began by studying the flaws. Ethan's schedule, his tone, the lies between his words, I started noticing patterns. He was predictable when he lied. His voice got softer, his hands steadier. The perfect performance of a perfect husband. Every time he kissed my forehead and said, "You worry too much," I wanted to laugh. Because now, I was watching him the way a scientist studies a specimen. Cold, detached, focused. But the more I observed him, the more I realized something else. I wasn't just studying him. I was rediscovering me. I started running again in the mornings, sketching in the afternoons, and reading old journals I had hidden away. Inside those pages were reminders of a woman who once believed in herself. A woman Ethan had buried under years of carefully crafted doubt. One afternoon, while shopping for groceries, I met Daniel. He was standing in the bookstore aisle, reading a book titled The Confidence Code. He smiled at me, kind but not intrusive. "You look like someone who used to love books but forgot why," he said. It wasn't flirtation, it was observation. And for some reason, that line stayed with me. We talked briefly. He was a psychology lecturer, gentle in tone but sharp in insight. When I mentioned I used to design but wasn't that talented, he raised an eyebrow. Or maybe you were told that so many times you started believing it. That night, I couldn't sleep. His words echoed louder than Ethan's voice ever had. Over the next few days, I started reading about imposter syndrome, that quiet parasite that makes capable people doubt their worth. Every symptom matched me. The low confidence, the fear of being found out, the constant need for validation. And it hit me. Ethan hadn't just broken my trust. He had engineered my self-doubt. The realization didn't make me angry. It made me focused. If he could teach me to doubt myself, I could teach myself to rise again. So I began a quiet ritual. Every morning before he woke up, I'd stand in front of the mirror and whisper, "You're not broken. You're just remembering." At first it felt foolish, but with every whisper, my reflection looked a little more alive. Ethan noticed the change. He didn't like it. "Why are you smiling so much lately? Did something happen?" I'd shrug. "Just a good day." He didn't realize those good days were the cracks in his control. I took small design projects under my maiden name. Each one felt like oxygen. My hands moved with confidence again, and clients began to notice. When I won a national design award, I kept it quiet. Ethan had no idea. He was too busy playing the charming executive, parading his perfect marriage at dinners and parties. But perfection has an expiration date. One evening, while he was away, I received an email from his mistress, Lila. Subject line, "You deserve to know." Inside were screenshots, messages, photos, proof of everything. And one final note. "He said you were fragile." I believed him. "I'm sorry." I stared at the screen, calm as stone. The old me would have broken down. The new me simply hit download all. The next morning, Ethan returned home acting normal. I made him breakfast, asked about his trip, smiled like always. Then as he reached for his coffee, I slid a folder across the table. Receipts, screenshots, hotel bills. He froze. "Claire, I can explain." I shook my head. "No need. I already did." His phone buzzed. It was his company's HR department. An anonymous packet of evidence had been sent overnight about misuse of funds, falsified receipts, and personal expenses labeled as client entertainment, all connected to him. His voice cracked. "You didn't." I looked at him, calm, steady. "I didn't lie. I didn't cheat. I just remembered who I was." He stood there speechless as his world began to collapse. Within a week, he was suspended. His mistress left town. The papers whispered rumors. And me? I moved out quietly, taking only what was mine: my art, my peace, and my name. Months later, I launched my own design studio. Clients poured in. Interviews followed. Someone asked, "What inspired your comeback?" I smiled. A reminder that sometimes the people who dim your light do it because they can't handle the glare. Ethan called once, months after the divorce was final. He said, "I made you who you are." I replied, "No, Ethan. You made me forget. I did the rest myself." As I hung up, I felt nothing but clarity. No hatred, no sorrow. Just freedom. My silence had ended him, and my voice had rebuilt me.